You can never outwork your stupid spending, no matter how hard you hustle. If your financial system is broken, you're gonna stay broke. Welcome to the Lawyer Millionaire, helping law firm owners scale profitably, escape the daily grind, and turn their firm into a wealth-building asset. Most law firm owners believe that working harder is the key to financial success. But what if the problem isn't how much money you make, but how you manage it? Today's guest went from drowning in $450,000 in debt to financially independent. Marco Brown is the owner of Brown Family Law, a top-rated law firm in Utah, and he's here to share how a panic attack in the shower changed his life.
We are on a mission to help lawyers and law firm owners maximize wealth and achieve financial independence. Welcome to the Lawyer Millionaire with Darren Wurz from Wurz Financial Services.
All right, and welcome back to the Lawyer Millionaire podcast, your one-stop shop for law firm owners looking to escape the daily grind and enjoy the benefits of hitting the multi-million-dollar club. And we have a special law firm owner with us today who has done just that. Marco Brown, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me, Darren. It's great to be here, man. It's fun to talk.
Absolutely. So I want to talk about your journey. You were once $450,000 in debt. Most law firm owners would be drowning in stress or quitting, but you dug your way out by growing and scaling your practice. Be honest with us. Did it ever feel insurmountable?
Yeah, it absolutely did. In the beginning, it did. So I graduated with about $160,000 in debt from law school. And then my wife, right after that, she started a doctorate program. So we accrued debt for that. So it was all school debt. And that seemed kind of nasty. But then we had, the other debt that went along with it. And it really did seem insurmountable. The way we chose to deal with it, though, was to just pick off pieces of it and then pay down the pieces, right? So we used Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover, and we just started doing that. It was like, okay, here are a couple credit cards, and we pay those off, and those are like really quick wins. And then when we started with the $160,000, $180,000 in student loan debt, it was like, we're going to pay off this loan. So it wasn't $180,000, it was like $20,000 or $15,000 or $35,000 or something along those lines. And that felt surmountable, right? Yeah. Like we could do those things, and then we just kind of piled those on, and then eventually, we slayed the dragon.
Yeah. So many law firm owners, even though they make great money, they build a practice that's generating millions of dollars, they still struggle to get out of the debt and start to accumulate wealth. So tell us about that. I mean, you built a great practice that generates great income, but it was also the Dave Ramsey that helped you as well. Was that critical to that success? It wasn't just the fact that you made a lot of money and were able to pay off the debt. You needed that Dave Ramsey program and a structure for that, right?
Exactly. So that was a nice thing about Dave Ramsey. Whatever you think about him, and I've kind of moved on in my thinking from Dave Ramsey, but during that period of time, that was incredibly invaluable because it gave us a framework to solve the problem that we had right then and there, right? And if you have a problem, you can't solve 1,000 problems. You can't solve 10,000 problems. You can solve one problem. So just solve that one problem and then move on from the problem. And that's what we did. So it gave us that framework. And that was fantastic, but that was part of it. So, you can cut down to zero, but you can increase your revenues to infinity, essentially, right?
Yeah.
So what we did during that period of time was both of those things. So we I think we lived off $35,000 that year or something, a family of three, and with running a law firm. And then we also radically increased the number of hours I worked and the clients and so on and so forth. So we did both of those things simultaneously. And that was really what enabled us to do it, because we paid off all the student loan debt in like a year. Yeah. And I never made that kind of money before in my entire life, or paid off that sort of debt. But both of those things combined were really what helped out.
I love that. You have to be willing to make some dramatic changes and realize what is enough, right? Like if we do this, we have that framework, anything's possible. And then you just start to accrue exponentially on the other side, which is really where the magic happens, right?
Yeah, and I mean, yes, it can happen. Now, what happens with a lot of people that I've seen, because I've talked with a lot of my attorney friends about this, is they'll pay off debt and then they just go back to their old ways, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
Scott Adams has this great saying, that the author of Dilbert, it's that losers have goals, winners have systems.
Mm.
So you can have a goal and you can reach it, and then you're just going to go back to the same system that you had before. So you need to change the system, right? And that
Yeah.
is play better defense, don't spend as much money, and then play really good offense all the time. And you just need to continue that. And doing those two things together is really what changes your trajectory after you've paid off the debt.
Right.
That's the secret sauce. That's the system.
Yeah. Fantastic. Cool. Cool. Let's talk a little bit about your business, because you've built an extraordinary business. Many law firm owners struggle to see their firm as a business. What were some of the big mindset shifts for you that helped you go from being a lawyer with a firm to really a true business owner?
So I'll do this. I'm going to tell you a little story about the impetus for this. So in
Yeah.
2015, when this is before we paid off the debt. This is really the impetus for paying off the debt, and then the mindset shift in the law firm as well. Uh, I was a pretty good attorney. I won Divorce Attorney of the Year here in Utah. I was voted on by my peers in the bar, which was a big thing, and that was great. But 2 days after I won that, I realized that I had all the same problems that I had before. So didn't really change anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then a
Yeah.
couple, like a week after that, as I'm kind of mired in this, you know, in all of this and negativity and whatnot, I get in the shower, and this had happened to me before, but I get in the shower and I'm cool for the first like 5 minutes, and then I start thinking about cases, and I start thinking
Mm.
about everything I have to do that day. So I just get super stressed in the shower, right? And my heart starts to palpitate, my chest constricts.
Oh,
I
wow.
yeah, it's bad. It's bad. And then I start getting this thing. It starts at the crown of my head, and it's going to envelop my face, and it is a stress headache. And this happened to me relatively often. I was
Wow.
not in the best physical shape at that point. I was not doing well. So this starts to happen, and I think to myself, "Ah, man, it's doing it again." And
Mm-hmm.
then this time was different, though. The shower was different because I was shown my future when I was about 60 or 65. I was dead, and I was in a casket, and I
Yeah.
looked out from the casket to the people mourning me, and I had kids there that mourning me that I didn't even have at that point. And that lasted for about 10 seconds. And like I can tell you that this was exactly what was going to happen to me. This was my future. And I thought to myself, after I got out of that, I thought to myself, no, I'm not doing that. That's not going to happen to me. I won't do that to my family. I won't do that to my, like really, really small team at that point. Like, I'm not going
Yeah.
to do those things. So then I had to change everything in order to not, be so stressed that I was going to die of a heart attack 25 years later. And that was really what got me thinking, okay, I should probably need to minimize the debt, because the debt is very stressful on me. And if I'm not going to sit here and do the same thing for 25 or 30 years, the same cases and the same, kind of grind, then I need to think about my practice differently. Like, I'm probably going to have to grow out of that. So I don't have to do those cases all the time, or I can do very few of them, or I can do none of them, right? Like, I just
Mm-hmm.
have to rethink what that looks like. And so I started that process. And in doing that, I started reading, actual business books and looking at the way other law firms had become businesses and how other businesses functioned,
Yeah.
so I could kind of emulate that. And it was a fairly long process, but that was the real impetus for it, and that was the beginning of the journey.
Wow, wow. So the debt wasn't just like, because you were, young and starting out. This was really kind of carried itself through into like you had already established your firm, you were running a firm, you were very successful, but you still had this burden. And all of a sudden you kind of had this moment of clarity where you're like, okay, some things need to change.
Yeah, absolutely. So by this point, I had messed around with debt, the student loan debt specifically, for 8 years, right?
Yeah.
I'd been out of law school for, I think, 7 at this point, and then we paid it off on year 8. But I had done everything under the sun to defer and, income-based repayment, all of these. And
Yep.
then it was only when, like, hey, you need to minimize your stress, otherwise your heart's going to give out. And I thought, okay, I should probably stop messing around with this and actually pay it off, right? And that was it.
I love that. There's something so powerful about just simplicity. We overcomplicate our lives, and so many people that I talk with, so many law firm owners, even though they're making tremendous money, they're still like living paycheck to paycheck. It's crazy.
Yep.
So yeah, there really has to be something that transforms in you where you're like, and then that's the secret sauce, right? If I can be a little bit more simple in my life, then I actually really start to accrue wealth, and then I can really, have some cool things in life.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, you could think about it like when I was a kid, when I was about 18, 19, I was morbidly obese and I had to lose a whole bunch of weight. So I lost like 85 pounds when I was 19, 20. And then in my adulthood, I've always had to watch my weight because, if you're morbidly obese as a kid, it's not like it just leaves you. So I think a lot about human nutrition. I work out a lot. This is just kind of in my mind, but you think about it like this, it's like eating. Eating is like 90% of maintaining healthy weight, right? What you intake into your body. And the output is important, right? But it's not, it's 10% important and 90% is just the caloric intake, man. So you really, when you think about spending, right, that's your eating. So there's nothing like you can never outwork your like stupid spending. Just like you can, there's no amount of running that you can do to outrun a fork, right? It's the same thing. Like eventually you just kind of have to stop spending or stop eating, and then you can get a handle on stuff.
Yeah, I've been in this industry a long time, and I've seen a lot of different people, and I've had an insider's view into their world, right, as a financial planner. And what I've seen is that some of the most tremendously wealthy people that I've worked with are not necessarily the ones who've made the most money. They've just lived simply. I'll give you a great example. Like this couple I worked with, they lived in such a way that they only needed to live on one of the spouse's salary. And they saved the entire other one. They never made, I don't think either of them ever made 6 figures, but they retired multi-millionaires simply because they were able to maintain that discipline. We're reading this right now in The Psychology of Money. Morgan Housel talks about how the biggest trick in life is just to get the goalpost to stop moving.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, wow, the world really opens up to you.
Yeah. Yeah. When you look at jobs, and you probably know this better than I do, but when you look at jobs, like which jobs produce the most millionaires, I think engineering is number 1. And then teachers, I think, is number 2, which is insane. Because they make absolute jack crap, right? Like, so, but the thing is, from day one, they force you to set aside a certain amount of money to invest, right?
Yes.
And so you're compelled to do that type of thing, and it just produces, over time it accumulates and it produces, and that's what most attorneys don't do on the financial side. Because I have a lot of attorney friends, and I have very successful ones, and I do their divorces, so I actually get to see their finances, not what they say their finances are, what their finances actually are, and they spend money like they're drunken sailors, and that's what does it.
No, you're not. And, it's funny because I was a teacher. So I was in that system. And it's like in Ohio, 13% of your paycheck goes into your retirement. And the state matches. So you have 26% of your income. And, it may not be a lot of money because you're only making like $50,000 or $60,000. But if you're doing that every single year from the age of 24. See, here's the thing about Warren Buffett, and we were talking about this on a previous episode. Warren Buffett, yes, he's a great investor, but he's not the world's best investor. The thing is, he's had time on his side. He became a millionaire at age 30 because he started investing at age 10.
And he didn't become a billionaire. I don't even think he became a billionaire until into his like 50s, right? Yeah, and he's old. Like that's just one of the things. Like it's yeah.
Yeah, time does that in a very powerful way. Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned books. What were some of the most transformative books, maybe top one or two, that really helped you make that leap into the next level of law firm ownership?
The next level of law firm ownership was really Grant Cardone's books. So, I mean, I've read,
Okay.
I can't even tell you how many hundreds of business books, but the ones that have been most transformative
Yeah.
for me are Sell or Be Sold, all of Grant's books, but Sell or Be Sold
Okay.
especially, and then The Closer's Survival Guide. I've read that book 24 times. It's the best business book I've ever read, like bar none.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. We'll put those in the show notes. What were like the really huge takeaways that were powerful for
Yeah,
you?
so both of those books have to do with selling and closing, right? So Sell or Be Sold is kind of the general philosophical outlook on selling. And attorneys have this kind of fraught relationship with selling. So all we do is sell.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're just salespeople as attorneys. We just sell high-end stuff like concepts and arguments and
Yeah.
so on and so forth. But we look down on people who sell physical objects like used car salesmen, and we shouldn't because used car salesmen have a lot to teach us about how to sell effectively. So we, like I said, we have this kind of fraught relationship. Uh, the part in lawyering where lawyers don't sell well is when they're acquiring clients, and they see that as like the dirty thing, right? They see that as the kind of used car
Yeah.
salesman thing, and that's just stupid. Like that outlook is just it's destructive and stupid. So when you read Grant's book Sell or Be Sold, it's like a general philosophy on selling and life, how life is a sale. Like almost everything in life is a sale. And then
Mm-hmm.
the Closer Survival Guide is the closing part of selling, right? So selling is the emotional side of things, getting people to want to buy from you, and they do that because they know, like, and trust you. And then the
Yeah.
closing part is actually getting people to give you money, and that's a logical process. That is, okay, I want to buy this thing, but now I'm scared. And how do I get over being scared? Well, you're helping them getting over being scared. So you're going through very specific objections and reactions to objections to overcome those objections. And so it's more of a technical book. There's some philosophy on closing, but it's more of a technical manual on if they say, oh, I don't have the money right now, then this is how you react to that, right? And that for me was super transformative because the missing link in everything that I was doing was being really, really excellent at client acquisition, including closing clients. So that changed everything for me when I read those books and started implementing that into our sales process and into our law firm.
Yes. Yeah. Boy, we've talked about that on the show with several of our guests. It really is important, and it's the same in the financial world. I, was very much an outsider coming into the financial world, and I kind of had a distaste of the sales, person. I didn't want to be that person, but when you really realize that sales is not convincing someone who doesn't need what you have to buy it, that's manipulation. Sales is simply you have a solution that this person really needs, and you're helping them to see that, and you're walking them through that. And when you see that sales is really just it's a professional necessity, and and it's not an evil. It's there's certainly a bad way to do sales, but there's a very good way to do sales.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. So I think about it the exact same way. So what we do as a law firm is we get people in there, we explain to them exactly what we do, then we get them in for a consultation, and then we make the determination of whether or not we can help them, and we are the best people to help them. And once we are convinced of that, then we sell, right? And then we close. Because at that point, I tend to think we have a moral obligation because we're better than everybody else at what we do. And if we're the best at it and we're going to help them better, then let's do it. Like, just tell them that and then convince them of it. But we have lots and lots of people, and I tell my people all the time, like, if this is not the type of person we can help, then you trying to sell them is just you lying to them, and we don't lie. Like, we're not doing that. So it's not that manipulation. It's like, can we help you? Yes. Okay, then we're going to help you. Can we not? Okay, then we're going to send you someplace else to someone who can.
Yeah. Now, are you still doing the sales, or have you now trained other people in your firm to do that process for you?
Yes. So I train, and other people do that at this point. Yep.
Awesome. Yeah. So let me ask you this, as you've grown your practice, do you feel like now you have more of that time freedom that so many law firm owners crave?
Yeah, absolutely. The more money I've made and the better my leadership has become, and the bigger my team has become, and the better at sales we've become, then I have tons more time freedom than I used to. When I was in the thick of things back in 2015, which was that great shower incident we talked about, I think I had 112 active case files, and it was me doing all of that stuff, and I had no time freedom. I literally had zero. I didn't have time to work out, and I didn't have time to do anything. I had time to go to church on Sunday with my family, and that was about it, right? But every other waking moment was doing work, and that is absolutely not my life now.
Yeah. So many law firm owners struggle with that, getting out of that casework, because there's this lie we tell ourselves that no one can do it as good as me, and we're afraid to hand it off to somebody else. How did you overcome that?
This is probably the most intractable problem when it comes to attorneys, because attorneys, they think they're the best at everything, right? We're smart people. We do this.
Yeah.
But let's assume that's true. Let's just assume that that's actually true, and that you are better than any person you could hire to do the thing that you do. It's not true, but let's just assume it's true. Do you have a decision to make? Do you want to do that same thing for the rest of your life? Or do you want to train somebody who's 90% as good as you to do that thing so you can have more freedom? Okay. That's what you got. And you have to make that determination. And if you don't want to do it, if you want to be the guy or the gal that does that for the rest of your life, more power to you. I don't want to be that person. I want to train people to be really, really excellent, realizing they probably will never be as excellent as I am, but that's okay, because it allows me to spend more time with my family, to serve more people, to make more money, to do all of these other things. And I just, I have to accept it and be okay with it.
Yeah, boy, I love that question that you posed, right? Do you want to stay here doing this? Or do you want that's it, right? Like, you ask yourself that, because it's one or the other. And people are going to make mistakes. I've done this in my practice, brought in, team members, planners to now do the client work. And no, they're not going to do it perfect every time. They're going to make mistakes. But guess what? There are some things that they're going to do a whole lot better, and that they're going to be actually more passionate about and more excited about. And stuff that you hate to do, they're going to be like zealous to do it. Have you found that?
Yeah, they absolutely will be. Now, what I had said before was assuming that it's true that they'll never be as good as you. But the thing is, man, you're going to find people that are better than you at the thing you do, unless you are literally just absolutely world class at it. And I was
Hmm.
pretty dang good as a divorce litigator, but I got people under me at this point that are better. And that's okay. Like I don't
Sure.
have a big ego with that. Like I get to do other stuff. But yeah, you're absolutely right. You will find people who are better at you at different aspects of your job. And your job at this point is to lead them to do the thing they do best and to do it continuously at an incredibly high level, and then find somebody else who does this other thing better. And then you put together a team, an amalgamation that serves your clients better than you ever could.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And in order to stay the best, you really have to like stay at the top of your game. You've got to continue to learn and stuff like that. And you know, the next generation eventually they will become the experts and the pros, and that is perfectly fine. Now, what do you say to the workaholics among us, right? Who, even though we scale and even though we bring in team members and we've offloaded so many tasks, we just keep finding shit for ourselves to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So this actually, I've changed my thinking on this a little bit. So I don't think that's bad, actually. It just depends on if you're doing the thing you like to do and
Mm,
if you're doing the thing that's actually highly valuable. If you're just sitting around doing busy work all day long because you want to feel busy, it's like Arnold Schwarzenegger says, busyness is BS, man. Like busyness is not okay. So if
yeah.
that's what you're doing, then like knock that off. But if you're growing a team and making them excellent, and you're doing just as much work or slightly less work, but you're doing the work that you want to do, that you are really good at and passionate about. Cool, that's awesome. Like it, if people really enjoy their work, like do a lot of it. That's totally
Yeah.
fine. And then there are some people that don't want to do that and they want to go like sit on a beach in Puerto Rico. And but they've worked really hard and they've created a great team, and that's absolutely legitimate because leadership is the most the highest leverage activity and the most valuable activity you can possibly do. Now, the change in my thinking was that, like, I used to do this in the sense, in the idea that I would just spend 6 months of the year in Italy or something, where, we now own a house because I could actually do that. But I don't want to do that. Like, I thought about it and, like, I don't want to do that sort of thing. I want to spend like a month there
Yeah.
or a month and a half a year because I really do like being around my team. I really do like marketing. I really do like serving people in what I do, and I'm just going to try to do higher and higher leverage activities, and just realize that that's who I am, and I like that.
100%. And you need that purpose. This is why so many, when we look at like the world of business, exit and selling, 85% of business owners who sell their businesses regret the decision
Yep.
later because that was their like whole meaning in life, and it gave them purpose, and then they sell it and they're like bored.
Yeah, they thought the money was the purpose of the thing. It's like, well, I
Yeah.
guess, but no, it's not. It's you serving other people is the purpose of the thing.
Right. So how are you thinking long term about exit in the future of your practice? Is it something that you would sell one day, or do you want to? So I get two camps, right? People who want
Yeah.
to sell, or people who want to like make it as much of a passive income asset as possible, so they can have as much time freedom, but still maintain some involvement. What does that future look like for you?
Yeah, and this really does depend on who you are. So I have friends on different ends of the spectrum. What I can tell you is that I will never stop. Like I will stop when God puts me in a body bag is when I will stop. Because I don't want to retire. I don't want to do any of that kind of stuff. There are
Yeah.
very specific like familial reasons that I don't want to, because I watched my dad retire and then just fall off a cliff,
Yep.
health wise and everything,
Yeah.
meaning in his life wise and whatnot. So that'll never happen. Um, I do want time freedom. I do want those things, but I don't think I'll ever sell. I try to build this place so I could sell one day in order to
Yes.
maximize the value of the asset, right, as it were. But really, what I'm doing is just trying to maximize how the thing functions because I
Yes.
want it functioning well and I want a team around me that I really enjoy. And then when you do that sort of stuff, you also tend to maximize the enterprise value.
Yes. Music to my ears. Are you a certified exit planner? Because you sound like one.
I'm not, but I've read the books, right? I've read the books.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. And that's what I've been trying to hammer away is like, plan for exit, even if you never exit, right? But in doing that, you are creating the most profitable, the most efficient, and most well-run business that you could ever possibly have because you've thought about transferability. And if you are not around, there's stuff to run it. And maybe that means you're not around in the sense that you're going to take a month off and travel the world or something like that. So I love that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I got to tell you that it is super when you work to maximize a business, even if you don't sell it. It is super cool to know that your business is worth more than like the PI firm down the shop that everybody knows, but is actually not profitable because they run just a garbage business.
Yeah, and unfortunately, so many law firms are just not well-run businesses because they're so owner dependent and their liquidity is horrible. They're like a bad quarter away from bankruptcy. So I mean, you can really stand out as what I think I'm trying to say here, right? There's so much opportunity to really stand out in that way.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, and it's weird. We're very poorly run businesses on the whole, but we also are part of a cartel. So like we have ready-made profit margins. I always say that if you can't make at least 15% profit margin in a law firm, it's because like your IQ is less than 70, right? It's just it should be easy,
Yeah.
but it's just not. And that's I'm sorry, that's kind of insulting. But what I'm trying to get at is that most people just don't think of their law firm as a business when it's fairly easy to think about it as a business, but we're never taught to think that way, and we never do.
Right, right. Well, folks, start thinking about your law firm as a business. You will stand out in the marketplace. It will be transformative for you. Marco, thank you so much for joining us. Do you have any last pieces of advice you want to pass on to our audience?
I think one piece of advice that changed my life when I transitioned from me doing it to then growing and creating a team that I loved and creating an actual business that served a lot of people at scale was that I made a commitment to get paid 100% for the work I did. Because before that, I was probably getting paid 50, 60 cents on the dollar. And then the moment I made that commitment to get paid 100, everything changed. It freed up tons and tons of money, and I fired a whole bunch of bad clients that I shouldn't have had around. It also taught me to think as a system, like what's the system for getting paid 100%? How do I solve my most intractable problem, and so on and so forth. It changed everything. And when I talk with my friends and or other attorneys, because I talk with a lot of attorneys around the United States now about these sorts of things, when they implement this and they start getting paid 100%, everything in their life changes and everything in their business changes.
Yes, Marco, music to my ears again. We've worked with a lot of clients and done a lot of things for them, but the biggest thing that I hear, it's the most simple thing, I think, but they're like, boy, the most powerful thing you did for us was help us think through and systematize and automate our cash flow and make sure we're paying ourselves first an automatic regular amount every single month. That you're right. That right there changes everything. And I got a lot of those ideas from Simple Numbers by Greg Crabtree and the Profit First system. But that regularity. Yep. Powerful. Thank you so much, Marco. In closing, where can our audience go to learn more about you?
So I have a website, but that's my Brown family law website, so that's not it. Just go to LinkedIn and search Marco Brown, and that LinkedIn is the one social media that I give myself, and I'm actually on there and I write all the content. All the other stuff is like marketing stuff, but LinkedIn is where I actually go and talk with people and talk about the business of law.
Yeah, you have a lot of great posts regularly. Got a great following. I don't know what you're doing, but you're doing something well on LinkedIn. If you want to learn more about Marco Brown and how he built a thriving, debt-free law firm, you can find him at Brown Family Law. Check the show notes for links to his website, resources, and where to connect with him online. My challenge to you today is this: a small change in your financial habits can make multi-million-dollar differences in your life. Having a financial framework that supports your goals is the starting point. And here at the Lawyer Millionaire Founders Network, we help with just that. We help law firm owners create a system for their business and personal finances to get unstuck and create massive wealth. If you're ready to do just that, we've got the strategies right here. Schedule an intro call with me today and learn more about our membership benefits and how our simple law firm owner cash flow framework can change your life. You'll find the link in the show notes. Well, that's a wrap for this episode of The Lawyer Millionaire. Remember, your law firm should be an asset, not just a job. Take control, build wealth, and create the future you deserve. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to The Lawyer Millionaire. Click the follow button below to be notified when new episodes become available. This content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. This content is not intended to represent investing or tax advice. Always seek the advice of a qualified investment or tax advisor with any questions you may have regarding your own financial circumstances.